Hi everyone, welcome to Dot Art. This is the long-awaited video that I promised to make for my students for my Dot Art classes, and really it's just an introduction to all the different techniques that I use when doing a Dot Art project. The first part of the YouTube will be around finding the center of this beautifully round molded concrete stone, which I make out of cement and use a melamine bowl. So they're very simple to make and they're really nice to work on because of the perfect shape. Okay, so in order to find the center of the stone, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scribe a circle on paper around the stone. And then I'm going to cut out my circle which I've scribed using a pair of scissors. Don't have to be extremely accurate when you're doing this. Just mostly the basic shape is what we require. And once you've cut your shape, you're going to fold it into eighths. So you're going to fold it in half, and then you're going to fold it in half again, and then you're going to fold it again once more. And once you've done those folds, just firmly crease those creases so that you've got a nice crease when you open it up. And then we're going to cut a tiny tip off the apex of that shape, and then in each corner we're going to cut a V. And then you're going to open up your circle, and this is what it will look like. And then you kind of estimate where the center of your stone would be and make a little mark there. And then place your circle on the stone, estimating that you've got it kind of centralized. And then once again, make a mark in your center, and at each apex of the circle, make a mark with your watercolor pencil crayon. And we use a watercolor pencil crayon because it's easy to wipe off once your project is complete. You then take a very bendy ruler, which a lot of the stationery shops have got, which are very useful for doing dot art, and you join your center dot to each mark that you've made on the apex. And basically what we're doing is we're dividing our stone into 8 pieces very accurately. It's really important that you get this process as accurate as possible, otherwise your whole mandala stone is going to go off center and not be pleasing to the eye. It's best to go from the center to the outer mark rather than going right across the stone. I find that when you go across the stone, you tend to go off center. Then have a look at your lines and make sure that they're perfectly centered. If you find that a line is not centralized like this one, just lick your finger and give it a wipe off, and that's the benefit of using a watercolor pencil crayon, and redo the lines so that it's going right through the center. Okay. Now what we're going to do to start off with is you're going to choose your color scheme, and I always like to use this teal green color. It's one of my favorites. It's got such a rich, deep color, and I like to blend it a little bit with some bronze if we got, or sorry, that's not bronze. I'm going to use some orange. So just choose what you would like to use on your mandala stone as a color scheme. You might find that you want to change as you're going along, and that's fine too. I always like to add white into the color scheme, because if you find that your mandala is looking a bit dull, you can brighten it up by introducing a little bit of white. We're then going to use this tool here, which I've made out of using a mosaic piece glued onto a piece of doweling rod, and they make the most amazingly excellent dotting tools. So my first dot, which I'm going to do, is going to be right in the center points, and there are a few rules around using your tools. The most important rule when you're starting off to do dot art is to always hold your tool perpendicular. So when you go into your paint, hold it perpendicular, lift it out perpendicularly, and then go down onto your stone perpendicularly. The second most important thing is to, when you come down on your stone, go down gently, almost as gently as if you're kissing a baby's cheek. So you're basically kissing the stone, because if you go down very hard, you're going to find that the paint oozes out to the edges and you get a bald center. So just to show you what I mean, going into my paint, dip it nice and deep so you get a nice dollop of paint on the end of your dot art tool. Take it out perpendicular and come down onto the stone, centralizing your stone like that. You always need to wipe your tip, okay? So I'm just going to add a bit more paint and come down again. It's really important to have a little cloth at hand, and after each application of paint, if you can get into the habit of wiping the tip of your tool, it is really helpful, because then you don't have an accumulation of paint on your tool, and you'll always have the same size dot as a result. If you leave paint to accumulate on your tool, over time you find that the shape and size of the dot art tool will actually change because of the layer of paint there. Okay, we're then going to go on to using the next tool. So I have a set of 5 tools here, all different size tips, and we're going to use this orange tool, which has a fairly large, comparatively large tip compared to the other end, and that's the next tool that I'm going to use. And this time what I'm going to do, in order to get our spacing perfect, I'm going to go down onto the lines using another color. So your choice of colors is always up to you. I think I'm actually going to use a bit of white. So again, just remember that we're going perpendicularly into our paint, lifting it out. You've got a nice dollop of paint there, and you come down onto the rock and kiss it very gently on the line. Okay? And then the next one. you find that the wax pencil crayon is giving you a bit of a misformed dot, you can always just wipe it off. I actually no longer draw the lines. I've got my iron for spacing, but as a beginner I would highly recommend doing the lines. Okay, I'm just going to go in here again to get a more perfect dot. And this one, wax is definitely making it go a bit off center. So you want perfect round dots. You can always come in later and do a little correcting of the shape of your dots once it's dry. Okay, so that's your first row of dots. And then going to go into another color using that same tip actually. And this time we're going to go a little bit further out towards the edge of your stone, the outer edge of your stone. So, and leaving a gap of about 1 millimeter between the last dot and this dot. It's very useful actually that I made a couple of not perfect dots there, because I'm going to show you just now how you can come in and correct them. Okay, so going around the stone again, making your way out. This kind of art is known as mandala art, and the design that we're doing is called a mandala, and there's a lot of significance around mandala art in many traditions. One of the things about doing dot art is that it gets you into a very quiet, centered space. So if you're feeling very stressed and feeling like you need something to bring you back to center after a stressful time, then doing some dot art can really help. Yeah, I'm just lightly wiping a bit of the watercolor crayon off so it doesn't resist the paint, but I'm still kind of keeping my lines. Okay. Then going to use yellow, and again I've got another tool which is a little smaller in size, but again it's a mosaic piece glued onto a doweling rod. They actually work much better than factory made tools. Okay, so going into your paint perpendicularly and then coming down, and you again remember we're working our way outwards towards the outer edge of your stone, so it's 1 millimeter away from the last lot of stones, or last lot of dots, I beg your pardon. Okay, so I'm going to go into orange as well and do the next one in orange. Okay, and I'm wiping after each application, going back to yellow, then into orange again, wiping after each application. It's nice to get in a habit of that, and it also creates presence by that whole process. Orange is the last one again. So You can see how much more perfect my dots are by wiping away some of that watercolor pencil crayon. Okay, we're now going to do something known as running of the dots, and in this process we don't wipe our tool until the paint has run out. So there's two reasons why it's called running of the dots. One, because the paint runs out, and the other because it's almost like you're running the dots around your circle. So we're going to start at, let's say, 6 o'clock, and we're going to go around without wiping our tool. And remember, perpendicular. As you get used to doing dot art, you can find that you know how to use your tool in such a way that you can use it at an angle. It always feels slightly counterintuitive to hold your tool upright like that, because we're so used to holding a pen at an angle or a pencil at an angle. However, when you're starting out, it's really important to follow that. Okay, you can see how we've done. What we've done is we started off at, say, 6 o'clock on your clock, and then gone right around, and then once the paint runs out, you dip in again and go back to your 6 o'clock dot, and then go the opposite direction. So I'm going to do that again, and just want you to pay close attention to what I'm doing. So we go in at 6, I don't wipe, and I go around the clock, so to speak, until the paint has run out. Then I wipe my tip, dip it back into the paint again, go down at 6 o'clock, and go the opposite direction. And I've missed a big dot, so I've done the yellows. I'm going to do the running dots around the yellows first. It takes a while of practice to get your spacing right. Even I make mistakes at times. There could be a bigger space here, but in general, practice makes perfect. Okay, I'm then going to use another color. I'll use the yellow, and we're going to do the same thing, but this time around the orange dots. And I am using a slightly smaller tool. And the reason I'm using a smaller tool is because the gap between is slightly smaller than around the white, around the yellow. Okay. Always make sure you've got a nice dollop of paint on your tip when you're doing the running of the dots, because remember, you've got to have sufficient paint on to take you right around the circle. And last one. A bit more paint there. Nice dollop of paint going around, keeping your spacing as accurate as possible. Go back in, go into your 6 o'clock point, 6 o'clock dot, and then go in the opposite direction. Okay, so our dots around the first dot are dry now. I just want to show you two methods of correction. So the first is to take, I always call this one a bit of a cheat, but anyway, it's to take a little black marker pen, not so little, the thicker one, it's a permanent marker, and go into your dot that you want to do a correction of. And you basically just wipe off the paint that you want to replace. Okay, and I wipe it onto my cloth actually, which helps. Okay, this one's also a bit squiff, so I'm going to do a correction on that one too. Okay, so they're not perfect, and I really like mine to be perfect, so that's why I'm coming in to do a bit of a correction here. And the reason why they weren't perfect was because there was a bit of a resistance that happened from the wax crayon. Okay, so I'm just going to replace those dots now using that same tool that I used previously, which is the bigger end of the factory made tools. I'm going to go in and just correct that one. Correct that one. Okay, that's much better. I feel more happy with that. The other method of correction is when your whole stone is dry, you put a little bit of black paint on your palette and then dip your tool into the palette, and I'm going to correct here. If you can see, there's a bit of a bulge in that swoosh there. So you take a little bit of black paint on your tool and just go over where you want to do the correction. Okay, and then wipe your tool, and I'm just going to go back in and redo the swoosh there. Okay, so that's your other method of correction. Another way of doing it is by, if it's still wet, is coming in with an earbud and mopping up that whole paint that you've done, and then just go in and repeat the process. Okay, what we're doing now is we're going to do another row of running dots, but this time, instead of just having a big 6 o'clock dot here, we're going to have 2 dots. So I'm going to do a big one there and then carry on around as far as you can go, and then dip your paints in, and adjacent to that one, the same size, we're going to do another set. So I'm not double dotting that top dot or the 6 o'clock dot anymore. Okay, so now we've got 2 big dots here, and to bring it to a little bit of a point, we can add a 3rd dot. Okay, so it kind of gives an apex shape. I'll do another one so you can see what I mean. So go in, go around your dot, yep. And then again another big one there, and opposite direction. I often support my hand because I've got a bit of a shake, but if you want to get a very steady hand, it really helps to just give that support with the second hand. Okay, so we've got a lovely apex on our stone and the last row of running dots that we've just done. Okay, and then wipe your tip. We're now going to learn how to do swooshes, and we're going to be, so I'll just show you how to do that. I'm going to use white, and what we do with the swooshes, you get a nice amount of paint on your tip, and using the very smallest tool that you've got, you go once, fill up that tip again without wiping, go twice, and then a 3rd time. And what we're doing is we're making a nice big full dot here, and then you're going to go into the one side of your dot and pull it through, and then the other side. So you're creating a teardrop shape. And take your time to make it perfect, okay? So there's the teardrop shape that we're having. So we go in, it's 1, 2, 3. Pull on each edge, so it's one edge, and then the second edge. Okay, and then we're going to do all of the other ones like that too. So it's 1, and then the outer edge. Okay, it's 1, 2, 3. Got a nice dollop of paint. Wipe your tip, pull the one edge, and then go in again and pull the other edge. Okay. It's 1, 2, 3. Got a nice dollop of paint there. Wipe your tip, go in and pull one edge, and then pull the other edge. 3, one edge, and then pull the other edge. Okay. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Wipe your tip, pull one edge, and then the other edge. Okay, making these lovely teardrop shaped swooshes. 2, 3. You might notice that instead of going perpendicular when you're doing the swooshes, it actually works better to hold it at an angle. So it's 1, 2. Okay, and then I'm going to take another smaller tool. It's also one of the mosaic ones, and I'm going to do a top dot. 1, 2. It's really important to choose your colors well. You can go onto Pinterest and get some ideas around color combinations. It's really the colors that you choose that make a good mandala as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to teach you to make a fleur-de-lis shape. So it's based also on the swooshes. Okay, I'm wiping some more of that waxed crayon off now that I've got my spacing perfect. And I think that I need another color, something just different. Sometimes it works to always remember to paint, give your paints a good shake. They do tend to separate out in the weather, depending on what weather it is. Okay, and if they're too runny, they're actually not good to use. Okay, alright. Another thing to remember is that sometimes your paints dry out, and you can always use there's different products that you can use to thin or thicken the product. So you get gel medium, and there's one called flow medium which you can buy. I actually use a substitute, but I can't remember offhand what it's called, so I'll try and remember to write it in the link. Okay, so we're going to do a fleur-de-lis shape, and we're going to do the 3 dots again, 2, 3, and then you're going to go in and pull down, and this time our swooshes are going to be quite a lot longer than what we've done on the other ones. Okay, so that's your center dot, and it's always a bit bigger, and then you're going to do the just below the top of that center swoosh, and you're going to do 3 again, 3, and this time you're going to bring the belly of the first side of the swoosh towards the center of the towards the center swoosh. Okay, so it's almost like you've got a little bit of a curve going there. Okay, and then we're going to do a smaller one, this time coming a little lower again, 2, 3, and again you're going to have a little bit of a curve, and in fact this one, and then you pull down the other side. Okay, so this is the shape that we're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, wipe my tip, bring the belly of it towards the center stem, and then this one, 1, 2, 3, wipe your tip, and again using your tool at an angle this time, bring the belly towards the stem there. Okay, so that's a different way of using your swooshes and creating a different design. I love this fleur-de-lis shape. It really is, gives me lots of pleasure. Okay, and then I'm going to use that mosaic tool, the smallest mosaic tool, and going into my paint again, I'm going to do a dot. Okay, and then I'm just going to double dot that one because the paint is a bit not even. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do running of the dots around this one from the bottom end. So just to show you what I mean, going in your paint, perpendicular, and please remember always it's a soft touching of your stone. You don't want to press too hard on your stone, otherwise you're going to squish the paint out. Okay, wait till the paint runs out, wipe your tip, go back in, double dot that center dot, and then go the opposite direction. Okay, so those are the basic techniques that you need to do dot art. That's all you really need to do it. Once you've got these techniques mastered, you can do any design. As you can see from my example here, you can use your running dots as to come to an apex, a point like that, or you can do them like that, so it creates a more geometric shape. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know anything in the comments if there's anything else that you need to know. A lot of YouTube clips on dot art pay a lot of attention to the consistency of the paint. I don't find that necessary. I think with time you will come to know what feels good. I just want to say what paints I use, because a lot of dot artists are very finicky and particular about the kinds of paints they use, and they use these expensive paints called Americano. But I found that just using a bucket of 5-litre PVA paint, which is really thick. You get these really cheap buckets of paint, and I use paint tints to get all the various colours that I need, and it really cuts out the expense of dot art immensely, and it works absolutely perfectly well. The other thing is the tools. I make, as I mentioned before, out of mosaic pieces glued onto doweling rods. And then from the Chinese shop, you can buy these pack of tools. They're actually nail art tools, so people using false nails and acrylic nails to do designs on them. And they're literally about 25 Rand each. So it's not an expensive craft or hobby to undertake. One of the other things that you can do, sorry, I forgot to mention, is you can overdot. So if you feel like you want to do, you've got your yellow here, but you want to have an overdot, what you do is you just go into the paint and use a different color and go over that, and you create what's called an overdot, and it gives a whole different effect. Okay, thank you so much. Hope you love the video. Please let me know. Please like it if you do like it, and we'll see you again.